This week on the podcast, find out what we learned when we visited the world-leading business Amazon. Welcome to the Profit Cash Growth Podcast. This is the podcast for 6- and 7-figure business owners who are looking to grow a financially successful business. My co-host, Claire Hancott, is a finance director, chartered accountant and entrepreneur. And every week, I'll be exploring guidance and frameworks designed to help you increase your profits, improve your cash flow and grow your business. Oh, Claire. So this week, we have been so ill, haven't we?
Well, not you. There's nothing bloody wrong with you. Don't you dare steal any of my sympathy.
That's why. I just thought I'd wind you up straight from the bat with the week. I have had a tickly throat though, haven't I?
I'm 10 days into just like the worst cough and cold you could ever imagine.
Yeah. In fairness, Claire has never, ever, ever been this ill for as long as I can remember. You've been grounded by it completely and it's just hanging on for dear life at the moment, isn't it? It's still going on. So I do apologise in advance if you either love the dulcet silky tones of Claire's sassy voice or you just get fed up of the constant coughing. And if there's lots of if this episode seems really staccato, it's because we keep stopping because Claire's going, I'm going to have a coughing fit and we'll see what happens next. Anyway, I've got loads to talk about before we even get to the news story that I just wanted to have a quick chat about with you, Claire. And then we're so excited to talk about our Amazon tour experience this week, aren't we?
It's brilliant.
Because, as we've said in previous podcasts, you've been trying to get us onto one of the Amazon tours for ages. We did it a couple of weeks ago, and we thought we would make a whole podcast episode about bringing lessons from a world-leading business and the things that we picked up on, things that we did expect, things that we didn't expect, things that we thought were really nifty, things that you could swipe and deploy into your own business and all that kind of great stuff. So we're going to have a bit of an open chat about it. And I picked 3 things, you picked 3 things, haven't you, that we're going to pick up on. So a couple of other things that have happened in my life this week. I've had KFC for the first time in a year. So that was
breaking news.
Just thought I'd pick up on that. And it made me realise that also I was thinking a lot about incentives this week because I heard...
Sorry, KFC made you think about incentives?
I'm getting to it.
Okay.
Well, because it's about the little incentives drive you through life, don't they? And I was thinking, how often would I go to the gym or how much would I push myself in the gym if there wasn't a Greggs next door to it? And you know what I mean? You literally know what I mean. And I thought about this when I was bench pressing and I was pushing for that extra rep and all that was going to my brain was the crispy chicken that I was going to have straight afterwards from Greggs. And it makes you push to think, I need to do X, Y, and Z before I can then have my treat at the end. Incentives drive everything. And Charlie Munger has a great saying, which we've quoted before Charlie Munger, and he says, show me the incentive and I'll show you the result.
Okay.
And it then got me thinking, I was listening on the news this week about somebody who was talking about taxes and how we use taxes to disincentivize people. So if you think notoriously the way that taxes have been used is to stop people smoking. So you raise taxes on cigarettes, it drives down, you raise tax on alcohol, you raise tax on sugary drinks, people don't buy sugary drinks. So
I see where you're going with this one.
Yeah, what the frickin' hell is Rachel Reeves doing by, expecting to raise taxes on everything and get growth? Those two things are just polar opposite, aren't they? Anyway, we all sort of understand the point in that. So yeah, I'll double back to this when we talk about Amazon because it's one of my points is all about incentives drive everything. Anyway, next thing I saw this week, which just caught my eye, was how long the tax code is. And I know we've talked before about how wild the tax code is, but this actually plotted historically how it's grown. And this was really, really fascinating. Just because I'm so surprised, even over 10 years, so the current tax code is 23,522 pages now, right? As of today. In only 2007, how many pages was it, Claire?
Oh, I've got no idea.
12,664.
Bloody hell.
So we've nearly, very, very, just off nearly doubled the number of pages in the tax code in the last
job is that as
10
well?
years.
Imagine that being your job. How dull your life must be.
And if I wind back another 10 years, 1997, it's 7,000. And if I wind to 87, so we're talking, what's that? 40 years. It is 40, isn't it?
We're in the year 2000. That's how my brain works.
Yeah, 2027. So in the year 1987, 40 years ago, the tax code was 2,890. So let's just let that sink in for a minute. 2,890 to 23,522 pages long.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's
isn't
just
it?
insane.
Absolutely insane.
I don't really have any other sort of thing to say about it. I just wanted to highlight because it really just it was so shocking when I saw it on a graph in these 10-year chunks. So
I always, whenever I hear things like this, and one thing that I always feel slightly uncomfortable doing is whenever we file anything on behalf of a client, so whether it's year-end accounts, VAT returns, anything like that, there's always like a disclaimer from our side that says that the client's aware that they take full responsibility for this submission, because if anything went wrong, ultimately HMRC goes after the taxpayer.
yes,
Even if you have an accountant that has misled you or done something wrong or something like that, ultimately it's you, the taxpayer, and then HMRC come after you. And the only really thing that you can then do is try and back it off to your accountant and sue them potentially.
Yeah.
But I always think that that's so unfair when our taxes are so complicated, because if you do take accounting advice, you do take tax advice, you are completely beholden to how good that accountant is. And even if the accountant gives you wrong advice, that doesn't give you a green light from a HMRC perspective, which is, I think, grossly unfair.
And at 23,500 pages long now, I mean, like, what are we saying that accountants basically need to be better than brain surgeons these days? I wouldn't imagine there's that much to remember in brain surgery, would there?
Well, I imagine there's quite a lot.
More than 23,500 pages of
I don't know. They have more practical experience, don't they?
I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to this week's actual news story of the week. So, Claire, I felt like we couldn't really brush past this news story, and it's actually a couple of news stories because it's been breaking for weeks on end now, and it's all about Jaguar Land Rover, isn't it? And the cyber attack that they've had. There's kind of two parts to the story, really, that I wanted to talk about and see if you had any views on. Obviously, one was, first headline is that Jaguar Land Rover's hackers dragged the UK factory output to a 5-month low because they're so dominant. They brought the entire economy in that sector down. And then obviously more recently, I just wanted to talk to you about they've had a £500 million supplier bailout from the government.
Yeah, it's staggering actually. I was reading a local news story from some of the local newspapers in Wolverhampton, because obviously JLR particular in like the Midlands area is huge, and it was talking about obviously the catastrophic impact of JLR shutting down and the immediate impact on the supply chain and anybody that's supplying JLR essentially. But also they were saying that, you know, all of the cafes and everything like that in all around the factories and stuff, you know, all of a sudden there's no workers going to work anymore. So, you know, it's the whole economy that you don't think of. All the taxis, all the small bus companies that were bus workers in and all of that kind of stuff. It's like the whole economy. Like there are literally like entire towns that have been completely affected by this because no workers are going to work and using the transport and hospitality as they're going to work. They're not staying in the hotels because nobody's travelling. And then also just the local workers don't have money to spend. Everyone's worried about their jobs, so they're not going out and spending money in the town. So it's, you know, obviously the immediate problem is the supply chain and making sure that, I think roughly they said 120,000 workers in the supply chain are at risk of losing their job if this isn't resolved. Yeah. But it's also the wider communities and the impact that it has there.
And how does this, because I came to us like, oh, you know, they've been bailed out, isn't it? Interesting, like found like it was in the billions it was getting.
No, they've not been bailed out.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You put me right with that, didn't you? In terms of it's not a bailout. What is it?
Yeah, so they've secured £3.5 million of funding. £1.5 million of that is a bank loan from a commercial bank. And it has been government backed. So should JLR go down, then the government would guarantee that. But it's a 5-year loan that has been given from a bank to JLR. And it's just the government is acting as a guarantor on it. The government have not given JLR any money at all. Just to clarify that. Yeah.
I mean, it says here that they're hoping they'll be fully back up and running by Christmas. I mean, this is got time to run here, hasn't it? That's 3 more months. This is going to hurt small suppliers. It's a bit like construction when we had that, what was the big construction company that went under and it just...
Carillion?
Yeah. The thing we wanted to talk about on this really comes down to the whole customer concentration conversation that small businesses need to be so careful of, don't they, Claire?
I think there's two things that really we need to start paying a bit more attention to. And we saw this in COVID as well with massive organisations and everything becoming so slick. We've gone to what's called like just-in-time production and just-in-time manufacturing. And that essentially means that you try and hold as little stock as possible, and you get everything delivered just in time for the point that you need to start manufacturing. And the risk is that as soon as there's a disruption, it causes absolute chaos, which is why it's going to take JLR 3-4 months to get their manufacturing plant back up and running, because everything in the supply chain has got to notch up at the same time. And it's such a intricate, delicate balance. And the plus side of just in time is it's enabled us to keep costs low and keep cash flow freed up and things like that. So there's a massive benefits to it, even just practical implications of not having to hold huge amounts of stock. But this is the knock-on impact of it. And I think in the last 5 years, we've seen this twice now with COVID, and then this wave of cyber attacks, which is actually they think that the source of these. So we've had 3 big cyber attacks. We had M&S, Co-op, and now JLR. And they think the source of that all goes back to this company called Tata Consulting Services, TCS, which provide IT and help desk sort of support services and cybersecurity services. So we've had 3 massive organisations in the UK cause like relative chaos. And at what point are we going to start putting processes in place to say, do you know what, just in time works to a degree, but we need some sort of plan B?
Sorry, the bizarre way my brain works, I was just thinking, this sounds like it could be a right conspiracy racket, couldn't it? That somebody takes down the business to then swoop in as the consultancy company that can fix cybersecurity to make a boatload of money, just putting all the problems right for them. But it sounds terrible.
It's certainly made me really nervous.
I think I said to you, didn't I said the next 9/11 will be a cyber attack. It won't be physical. I'm sure of that.
I think it's scary how easy it is to happen. Saying that, I can completely see how easy it is. But working in big organisations, small organisations, like if I'm honest, most small organisations don't really have proper IT security in place. Like we all have the processes of, password protecting things and putting 2-factor authentication on stuff. But other than that, what are we really doing in small businesses? But also, very large organisations, it's so complicated. Like in large organisations, they tend to do box ticking. So I can remember, I worked at a company and we just basically tagged every email that came from an external source was tagged with a warning saying this email is from an external source. Once you've seen that 5 times, you switch off to it. So what use is it?
It's like 23,500 pages of tax code. You switch off to it. As a small business, though, do you think that they're actually not that at risk at the side? Because the reality is it's always the big businesses. You can't cyber attacking a small business doesn't make the headlines. You can't hold them to ransom, all those kind of things. So actually, while you could spend lots of time really focusing on that as a small business, but actually, it's always going to be these big businesses that are going to make the headlines and are going to be attacked, doesn't it? Because the small businesses have got nothing to be attacked for.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me cautious is obviously holding client financial information and things like that. That, puts us at a slightly higher risk than the average small business, for example, of being hacked. And, I guess if you're an organisation that holds a lot of bank details or does a lot of card transactions, things like that, that puts you at a slightly higher risk. Is anybody going to really go after you, Move Estate Agency in Leighton Buzzard? I don't think they are. But you just never know. And this is what I always used to say to people talking about fraud. Like one of the things that, part of my role as a finance director is to try and prevent fraud. And everyone's like, oh, no, it's fine. I trust Jane. Jane can have access to everything because I trust her. And it's like, well, the only reason that fraud can happen is because there's opportunity. And It's because you trust somebody implicitly. So if you think that something's not going to happen, that's going to be when it comes and bites you in the arse. And it does happen. Because they haven't
done the checks and they realise that Jane's real name is Pete.
That's a completely different thing, but I get your point.
Great. Well, when we move on, I'm surprised. We're moving on to talk about Amazon, and just in time's a big part of Amazon, isn't it? Which we'll
massively.
Probably talk about as well. So let's move on to this week's deep dive. So Claire, this week, Amazon and the tour we did
so good.
We did the branch near Dunstable, didn't we? Which. What did they tell us about it? That it was called. First bit of interesting trivia: each Amazon branch is named after its nearest airport.
Yes.
So the one we went to was called LTN4 because Luton Airport's code is LTN, and this was depot number 4 within the radius of Luton Airport. So if you're in Birmingham, the branch will be called BHX. BHX, not BMX. BHX1. If you're in Manchester, be MAN1. That's quite cool, I thought.
Yeah.
And by the number where it, how old it was and when it was. The one we went to see was only 10 years old, wasn't it? It was the newest one they put in
we
the
were there
area.
for their 10-year anniversary.
We were indeed.
Well, I was staggered when we turned up, actually. Like, from the minute you pull up in the car park, there's massive signage. So this is obviously like the quantity of these sort of tours that they are doing. They run most days. I think they run like 3 to 5 days a week, and they have a couple of tours every day that they do them. And that was what staggered me, is that you pull up in the car park, there's like dedicated signage, there's dedicated parking, there's a team member outside to greet you. You go inside into the waiting area, and, you know, they're even giving you like headsets and everything. So this isn't just like a one-off thing. It's like, oh, book on an Amazon tour, and it's sort of like a bit ad hoc. This is like a well-oiled machine, and 100% the purpose of these tours was to improve the Amazon branding for sure around recruitment and what it's like to work with Amazon. That was quite clear, but it wasn't rammed down your throat at all. You definitely learn a lot. It was very, very interesting. And then sort of at the end of every area that we visited, there'd be a little link back to what it would be like to work there. It's very subtle.
It was very subtle. Basically, the Romanian lady that was showing us around just would say every 10 minutes, see, 10 hours on your feet is not that hard. It's not that hard. That's all she would say. And she'd constantly like hammer home that it's not that hard working at Amazon.
Yeah. But also some of the perks, she talked about those a lot as well.
Oh, we've got loads of perks to talk about. But yeah, I guess that they've had, because they have had some hammering in the news, haven't they, about, I think there was, do you remember the thing about the Amazon drivers having to piss in bottles and things like that? They had that thing going on. So they do. So I guess, again, this goes back to what we said about, you know, part of your brand, and when we do content and things like that, recruitment's everything, attracting talent's everything. And I think in the UK at the moment, I imagine they're struggling like everybody just to get the number of bodies they need to do things at the scale that they're doing. So this is just part of a clever strategy to make sure that they're putting themselves in the right light. And it worked for me, because I think they I now, having seen that, I think they treat their people amazingly. I was like blown away.
Yeah, I agree, actually.
Absolutely blown away.
Walking in, I mean, this isn't one of the points that we were here to talk about the
being
Amazon tour,
at a school.
There was so we arrived at like 2:30. There was big canteens areas. They had a breakout area with like a pool table and games consoles and things like that. And they had a community library. Yeah, they just had loads of sort of areas that looked really pleasant to be a part of. Yep. They referred to their uniform as swagger or swag or something, didn't they? And there was like different...
Didn't they, a book library where you could swap and... Yeah, I basically felt like they'd just recreated a school. It felt like going to school,
feel like that.
Where you'd go to your lessons when you were doing your work. You'd have your mid-morning break. You'd have your lunch break. And it just felt happy and like community driven.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. Right, okay, let's share our standout or pick out points. So, one at a time. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, go on then.
Go on then. What was one that stood out for you from
the first thing that I really stuck with me was that it wasn't overcomplicated. I expected that Amazon, being the size of organisation that it is and the funds that it's got available, that we would go and see just complication that blew my mind in terms of intricacies and things like that. You know, I had my background in distribution. I had a fair idea of what the inside of this distribution centre would look like, but I still expected a little bit more. I expected some fancy robots somewhere doing something, and there was robots, but I mean like humanoid robots and things like that. And there was just nothing like that. It was just really simple processes, procedures, systems, and ideas, and nothing was overcomplicated. And I think some things where clearly it's almost like they've done a level of systemization and automation, but it felt like the next step was so great that they've just kind of accepted that that's too complicated, and they'll settle with what they've got now because it works.
Yeah, I do. I think I'd agree with that. That's exactly where you're coming from. One of my points that links into that is that the thing that surprised me is I thought I was going to walk into a completely autonomous building, completely run by robots, and actually it was fundamentally more manual than I expected it to be. It needed fundamentally more people, and there's significant opportunities for labour, physical human labour, than I possibly thought. Actually, the only part that was managed through robotics is around storage. So effectively, it's all about the stowing and the way that things are stored that actually have been roboticized. Everything else, the picking, the stowing, the packing, it's all still human manual labour, isn't it? And that really surprised me.
So essentially, when you walk into the warehouse, the entire centre of the warehouse is bookcases, and the bookcases have got 4 sides to them with various size little compartments on, and then there's robots that basically take these bookcases to the edge where the pickers and packers are working. But when I say things weren't overcomplicated, and I think we've kind of got the same idea here, haven't we? When I say things weren't overcomplicated, it's like they had these compartments that could hold probably somewhere between 6 to 10 products, and they could put the pickers and packers, so when they were stowing products, as in putting stock away that had just arrived in Amazon, the people that were putting the products away could literally choose any compartment in the bookcase, and there was no order or method or anything like that to it. As long as the product fitted into the cubby hole, that was fine.
The system just recorded it, then stowed in that cubby hole, so it
so there was essentially like a light curtain, knew which cubby hole they'd essentially put their hand in just by the movement of the fact that the light curtain was broken. So then the system could record, they've put the book that they've just scanned into the very top left cubby hole, but there could be 10 other items in that cubby hole, and that was what really surprised me.
Totally unrelated as well,
because coming from a background in distribution, generally everything has a set location and a set label, and that doesn't really change. So that was what took me by surprise, is that they've essentially got these cubby holes with just literally anything in it, and it works.
Well, I said to you that, again, coming from distribution similar to yourself, my idea, in normal historic distribution, you would have, racking, line after line of racking, and you'd stow, a bit like going to an IKEA warehouse, person would go down, they'd pick it, and they'd be stored together. Certain small items be together, certain things, big items be together, and various other things. But the thing that really surprised me, somebody at some point is basically, instead of saying, let's put a robot in that goes between the racks, picks from the storage and brings it to them, has completely said, let's re-engineer the entire thing. They've started from scratch. And what they've done is they have ended up breaking the racking up into basically these, square bookcase type things that are totally mobile, that can just be moved around
by these robots,
like a jigsaw puzzle by robots, which is just baffling. And I'm like, what baffled me is when you look at it, it feels less efficient than the original way of using stowing and distribution. But surely it can't be, because they've come up with that. They must have gone for a more efficient method, but it doesn't feel more efficient. It's bizarre.
It can't be, because in the old days, in a traditional distribution centre, you would have pickers and packers, and normally sometimes they've even got shopping trolleys, and they're literally walking down the aisle, picking everything. They then have to take it back to their bench, pack it into a box, check it, label it, etc. Whereas now they don't have to do that walk-in. They're literally just standing there, and just the bookcases that they need for the product that they need to put in the Amazon package comes to them. So from that perspective, but I think bringing this back to what we really got from this in terms of impact on our small businesses I think we've probably got the same point here, is don't overcomplicate things. Sometimes the pursuit of automation, you can make things so complex and so big that firstly it's very difficult, expensive and timely to implement something, and the amount of points of failure also become greater and greater. So sometimes the pursuit of perfection is what prevents your improvements from happening.
Great. Is it my go or your go? What are you on?
Well, I think it's my go now, because we kind of had the same one there. So the second one that really took me by surprise is walking around this warehouse. I swear it was only about 25% full, wasn't it? Only about 25% of the pick and packing stowing stations had people working on them.
I see what you mean.
And it was because they were waiting for the Christmas rush.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, they're a business that have built forward capacity into themselves, haven't they?
But an insane amount. I don't really know if there's a business lesson here or not. I mean, from a financial perspective, I would always say that, you do whatever you can to even out your seasonality, because you want everything in an ideal world, you have utilisation at 100% all year round. But this factory genuinely felt like it was probably at about 35-40% utilisation. And it's very interesting how that can work from a numbers perspective, because they just had entire corners of the warehouse just not being utilised. Yeah.
When you said all of the picking and packing lanes for everybody, it felt like only 20% of them had someone in them. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just crazy. So it can work. Obviously they've made it work, but it's insane, because in that business they're so seasonal. Come Christmas they must be, I think I can't remember the number she said, but it must be it must double its amount of stuff.
16,000 items an hour they can distribute.
It's crazy.
So yeah, that was quite striking, actually, the level of seasonality. I always knew that Amazon would be busy at Christmas, but I just didn't comprehend on what scale that was.
So that moves on to my next one, which is not a single process in there hasn't been systemized.
Yeah.
And this is like, it's great that they've got, they've got a culture of actually trying to retain good people and various other things, but their business doesn't rely on those people being good at all. It relies on them being able to move their hands from one place to the other and press a button.
Yeah.
It's not what I'd call a trust-based environment whatsoever. There's no requirement for the person to think. Everything's done for them and laid out for them. I'd say the negative to that is I was just looking at it thinking cognitively, these people can never move forward in their jobs because cognitively there's nothing testing them, challenging them. They're not solving problems. It's all systemized. It's very McDonald's. Like it's McDonald's in a factory, isn't it?
I don't think that you're being entirely fair when you say that, because you're literally referring to, okay, and it's going to be a large amount of the workers there, but you're literally referring to the people that are doing the
sorry, I don't mean the management
packing.
level. Yeah,
but there were lots of other jobs. So, for example, my next point is around the problem solvers, but there are specific people there to solve problems.
Yes, that layer is different. But I was just talking about the
people that were showing us round. They were trained to do, and I know it probably doesn't sound that complicated, but when you go there, you get an idea of the scale of it. They were trained to do the picking, they were trained to do the put away, and they were also trained to do the packing and distribution. So you've got 3 different areas that they can move between on a day-to-day basis, as well as volunteering to do these tours. And that's just it sounded like that was the entry level role in
But what I liked about it is that I literally give me a day in a monkey and I would get them to the space they need to be, because it's all you need to tell them is which button to press next.
Yeah, I think we could have been let loose on it.
I mean, yeah, we're pretty close to being let loose. Well, they let somebody have a go.
Yeah.
So it shows that instantly somebody can just do the job, and that's the beauty of it. You can, if somebody's off sick, you can slot somebody in really quickly with minimal training. Systemization is absolutely everything at that level. Did you have another point?
Did you just do your number 2?
Yeah. Not a single process having been systemized.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was my number 3.
Do you know what? Yeah. I think you missed a couple of really good little bits on there that just blew my mind.
Yeah. Sorry, I've written down my examples. Oh, no, to give a couple of examples of just how wild this goes, my favourite was the packing part. When they're packing, the system, when they scan the item, the system tells them exactly which size box to take. So they've got lined in front of them 10 different size boxes. So they scan the item and it says green box. So the one with the green sticker underneath, that's where they take the box from. Then, when they've done it, they press the green button on the tape machine and it provides them with the exact length piece of tape to tape that size box down. And that just blew my mind.
And I think if you
no wastage, everything done as it needs to be, super efficient.
If you ever get an Amazon box in the post now, you'll notice that it's literally like the perfect same amount of tape every single time.
And even things like warning labels. So because they've scanned that item, if it's one with batteries in it, it will then give them another label with, automatically to put on that box. And the final thing to say that I was really surprised about, but also pleased about, because it's very much to do with GDPR and everything else. So I was really surprised that the pickers and packers within the business never know the name and address of the package that it's going to, because the label is applied at the very end by a machine, not a human.
Yeah, that's true.
So everything's packed, and the system knows who it's for and when it's for, but doesn't apply the identification to that package until the very last point where it's ready for shipping. That really impressed me as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Final point, Claire, for you?
So my final lesson that I took away was around, they had specific people who they referred to as problem solvers.
Yeah.
And they basically, their job was to solve everything that falls down. So there's there's a book on the floor. Where's that book come from? Where does it need to go now? Or an item has come up for somebody to pick and the robots arrive with the bookshelf, but the item isn't in that bookshelf. So I thought that was quite interesting, because specifically when I think about my business is I want everybody to be inquisitive and try and solve problems. And I think that made me look at that slightly differently and think, why don't I just have one person who is really good at solving problems, and that is their job, is to be a problem solver. Now, we're not quite at that size yet where I can have the luxury of one person solving problems, but it might be that, you know, you've just got this person that you kind of helicopter into any issue.
Who's floating around.
Yeah. And they're just a problem solver. They are paid to solve problems. They are creative. They think outside the box and they can fix things. And that really just made me think differently about how I'm approaching creativity and problem solving in my business.
In a small business, isn't that person just the owner?
Yeah, but that's the problem, isn't it? It can't be me all the time.
In your size business, it can. But when you get to Amazon and bigger business, I get it. They've got to put those people in.
Yeah.
That act like the owner. They just take ownership, don't they? They take agency, responsibility, and ownership. Because you're right, if you've systemized and taken that element out of everything else, you've got to put it back in somewhere.
Yeah, stuff will always fall down. I think they just expected that, the sheer quantity of stuff that's going through the production lines, they will ultimately have problems. And so they just recruit people specifically to solve them.
And I remember saying at the time when I was in there looking at how it's great that this is all so systemized and so machine and AI driven. But going back to what we said about cyber attacks, I mean, they now have a business that is so open to attack. It's unbelievable. The whole thing would just stop if somebody got into their technical systems.
Would it really matter? Would it really matter if Amazon stopped though? I don't know. When we were there and seeing the types of products that are going through here, and I was just like, what the hell are people buying this crap for? There is just so much. And it's just like most of it is beauty products and toys and household items and bloody candles and things like that. And I'm just thinking, my God, we are just like so wasteful of our money. And
it's a fair point.
It's just tap.
Maybe wouldn't. But it's like, if you take the supermarket world, like, it does matter, doesn't it? Because in that world, if you can't get groceries to people, you've got a real problem, and that's it. So my final one, which I think is probably the most important one I took away from it, which I talked about earlier, and that is I came away with a couple of things. Number one, incentives drive everything. Yes. Incentives drive behaviour. We know that, and this is why we talked about this, and this is why, talk about the government driving disincentive rather than incentive. And I'm going to couple two things together. We talked about the process itself being foolproof. What I didn't talk about is where somebody has been incredibly clever. I don't want to use the word manipulation because that's a negative word, but they have fully understood how human behavior works and what drives humans. They've tapped into that dopamine hit that humans get, and they've effectively gamified the process of productivity within Amazon. So actually, not only is it systemized, but when you look at the stations they're in, it's all great big color buttons. It's all great big colored things, lights flashing here. Actually, it felt almost like, those walls where you stand and you hit the light attack. It almost felt like that. So they've been very clever in making sure it's chunky, it's simple.
Sorry.
The user interface is easy.
I feel like the elephant in the room here.
What?
The ice cream game.
No, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. But my point is, first of all, the physicality of what you're looking at was gamified.
You were locked in a cage, though.
No, don't say that, because I don't want to say this. They specifically explained
you were
the
inside a
cage
cage
was because it was raised up, and it's safety in case they fall out. So,
but you were in a cage.
Anyway, the most genius thing is when they're doing their stowing, picking, packing and various other things, they obviously link into a league table around
around the world,
around speed and all the productivity of how fast they're stowing and storing goods and various other things. So it links into this league table. Now, if you just stop there, that's what a good corporate business would do. Lots of corporate businesses link things and put people in league tables and put the league table.
How many items do you pick today?
Exactly.
Yeah, boring.
And boring, put it on a screen. But what they fail to recognise is that the human then connects the negativity of the work, the physical work, with the delivery of that league table. What happens if you take the results you get from that league table, convert them into ice cream for your ice cream truck, and then the people that sell the most ice cream from their ice cream truck to the teddy bears actually then win the game? I thought it was just genius. So next to each station is a little screen with a picture of your ice cream truck and how much ice cream is filling into the truck that you can then sell to other people.
It's not just ice cream. The more you're picking and packing and the more you're doing from a productivity basis in your job, then not only are you getting more ice cream, but you're also getting better quality products to sell in your ice cream machines. So you're earning more money.
Price for your ice cream.
So then basically you're in a league table against all the people in the world in this ice cream game as to who's got the best ice cream van, who's got the most customers, who's making the most money.
So where this is genius is that they then make it twice removed from the results of your actual physical labour. And it's a bit like fantasy football. It becomes like, I mean, the way they talked about it was they were evangelical about this game, weren't they? About their fight to sell the most ice cream and win the ice cream. And it's all tied back ultimately to how productive they are for that business. And she said there was some interesting things around their culture. She said a lot of the time when people question around productivity, and she would come back and say, do you think Jeff Bezos wants me stood here not packing? Do you think Jeff Bezos would accept me if I stood here for an hour and I didn't do that? And that was an interesting culture there. It's very much, there is a drive of productivity there,
because
isn't there?
there was a few people in the group that we were, there was like 15 of us on the tour, and there were a couple of people that challenged and said, do you have targets that you have to meet? And she just said, do you ever expect any business to not set targets? And I thought that was quite interesting, because this is somebody that, you know, probably is paid close to minimum wage and has worked at Amazon for, I think she'd been there for 15 years, hadn't she? She's been there a long while, doing a picking and packing role. She was so passionate, but she was so engaged and understood that the productivity and how well she does her job has an overall impact on the success of the business. And I thought that was something from an Amazon perspective that they've got across really, really well in their culture. And
you've completely indoctrinated her into Amazon, haven't they?
I think indoctrinated is so the wrong word. No, she's very engaged and she's very in love with Amazon, and she wants to do a good job because she understands that how well she picks and packs makes a difference to the overall success. But I thought that was really powerful, because
very powerful.
When you see that in the right environment, that's what you get. You get what seemingly most people might dismiss as like a really shit job. You get somebody that bloody loves their job and wants to come into work and do a really good job every day. When it goes wrong and you get that message into the wrong person, that's when you get the Panorama TV programs about how they're making us pick X amount an hour, and it's like, well, what do you think you're here to do? So I thought that was really, really
interesting.
Good. That message about culture was really, really strong in a very positive way.
Right, summarise, Claire.
Bloody love Amazon. And I had checked out that we are going to go and do a tour of the Swindon one next, because the Swindon one is a newer distribution unit and it's got more robots in it. And I think the picking and packing element of Swindon is more automated than what we saw in the Dunstable. So we are going to go and do a second tour, because
it is quite cool, because their warehouses do specialise and do different things, don't they? So you would see something different if you just do a bit of research. So we're going to be evangelical about Amazon.
Yeah.
And it's worth did we mention that these are free, the tours?
Oh, yeah, they're free.
We mentioned it's free.
Yeah, you just have to go on just Google Amazon distribution.
Highly recommend you go and see one if you just want to shop and any thoughts or knowledge about how to run your business. It's very interesting.
Do you know one thing? I did put this on my key takeaways, but what I really bloody loved about Amazon is every member of staff had a swipe card, and how easy it was for the people that we were doing the tours. It was dead easy for them to literally walk up to any Amazon machine, swipe their card, and within seconds, they were in on that machine. There was no delay, no logging on, no passwords, no two-factor authentication, none of that crap.
They could work from any station, anywhere in the factory.
Literally. But it was just so simple and easy, and there was no barrier or complexity to it. And I just thought, how do I make it easy for anybody to literally sit at any desk in my office? That was kind of also something that got my brain whirring.
Fantastic. Great. Well, hope you enjoyed that. And do get yourself booked on an Amazon tour. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And let's move on to this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra.
So iOS 26 has launched, and for people thinking iOS 26, I'm a bit confused. Most of you are probably on iOS 18. That's the Apple operating system that we're talking about. So I don't really know why Apple have done this, but they've gone from a giant leap. So at the moment on your iPhone, you've got a choice of doing an upgrade to platform 18 or leapfrogging all the way forward to iOS 26. And it really does look quite different. It's got this crystal glass display, so it kind of looks a little bit like water on your screen. It's a little bit weird.
Why have they skipped all the numbers between?
I don't know.
Okay.
But it does really feel quite different. Like the shape of the messages when they pop up, just even like they've got more, like everything's more rounded and the fonts are different, and it just does feel very, very different.
Just be careful if you do this, because you can't go back from it. I'm not doing it. You've done it. I don't like the look of yours, because it's all like you can't really see the messages and stuff, so I'm not doing it.
Yeah, there are a few things that niggly about it. It's very difficult to read the notifications on your home screen, because with this liquid glass, everything's clear, so you've got like text over an image, which is quite difficult to read. Anyway.
Is this the Profit Cash Growth Extra, iOS 26?
No, the Profit Cash Growth Extra is specifically around, it's got this really cool feature where now you can set a setting on iOS 26 to screen your calls. So when somebody calls you from an unknown or withheld number, or a number that isn't stored in your phone, then essentially your phone will ask them to announce who they are and what the purpose of their call is, and it displays it on the screen as like a text message for you. So it's a little bit like a pre-voicemail, gives you the option to then answer the call or send the call to voicemail, which I think is really, really helpful. So I had it the other day. It was a sales call. It allowed me to see, do you know what, now is not the right time to take this sales call. Yeah. So I'm not going to answer the phone. And really loving that call feature on iOS 26.
And you know, I thought totally pointless, because I thought basically if they're a sales call, they're never going to answer it in the same way they don't leave you an answer machine message. If it's someone that wants to get hold of you, they'll leave you an answer machine message. So I don't really get it. But
you don't have to call them back because it's like an answer phone machine message, but you can still pick up the phone halfway through the message. So if you're seeing that message transcribed on your phone and you think that's someone I want to talk to, you pick up the phone and you talk to them. You don't have to ring them back.
I think you can do that in the app. You know, they've transcribed the answer machine message, and I think since they've done that, you can actually pick up the phone during the answer machine message as well. Yeah, it's quite similar. Anyway, check it out. iOS 26. Just think twice before you upgrade your phone. Make sure you know what you're doing and all the rest of that. So thanks for joining us for another week's podcast. Hope you enjoyed that one. As always, if you feel like you might have outgrown your current accountant and you would like to work with Claire and the team at Profit Cash Growth, get over to the website profitcashgrowth.com. On there, you can book a free health check, discovery calls, have a chat about your business. You can order a copy of Claire's book, Profit by Numbers. We do give that away free in the post. It is a physical copy to any UK address. And just keep getting rave reviews about that. It's selling well on Amazon as well now. So we give it away free if you want it, but we also sell quite a few copies of it. And as always, please rate, review and subscribe. Spotify, Amazon, please just leave us a 5-star review. If you can leave an actual review as well, written review, that would be amazing because it really helps people understand what we're about. And we will see you again next week.